Fairgrounds Live Immersive Conversations. In this weekly series, we sit down with a Fairgrounds collaborator to chat about themselves, their work, and to give you an insider's look at Fairgrounds St. Pete. If you're new to Fairgrounds, we're a very soon to open, immersive arts and technology destination opening right here in St. Pete, Florida. I'm Olivia, the Director of Communications and Artist Relations here at Fairgrounds St. Pete. And today, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing you to a very special person who I get to work with every day, Chad Jacobs. Chad is very unique in the fact that he is both our graphic designer, so he works here at Fairgrounds St. Pete, and he's a Fairgrounds St. Pete FloridaRAMA artist. So he will be telling us all about his FloridaRAMA diorama. But before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about Chad, just to give you some context about just how talented and how experienced he is. A graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design, Chad has over 10 years experience as a graphic designer and illustrator. Hailing from St. Pete, I know where that is.
Yeah, it's really close.
We're really close. Hailing from right here in St. Pete, he is no stranger to the local arts community. He's going to tell us all about that. He has worked for notable organizations such as American Stage, the Dali, Feld Entertainment, and is a repertory ensemble member of the St. Petersburg Shakespeare Festival. Can't wait to hear all about that. He will tell us all about this, so without further ado, welcome to Immersive Conversations, Chad Jacobs.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Okay, so before we dive into all of these things, how did you find out about Fairgrounds St. Pete?
So I actually heard about Fairgrounds from my mom because she has her finger on the pulse of like everything that's happening in St. Pete, and she's always looking at like new things, particularly artistic things that are happening in the area, because she always wants me to be involved with them. And so she passes all these things along to me, and sometimes it's like not quite the right fit, but sometimes it's perfect. And so like in this case, she was like, hey Chad, there's this place opening up called Fairgrounds, you should totally check it out. And I was like, okay mom, sure, whatever. But then I actually read about it and was like, oh no, this is something that I absolutely want to be involved in because it sounds so amazing.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
And so, what specifically in the? It was the newspaper article that you saw.
Yes, it was in St. Pete Times.
Awesome. And so, what was it in it that caused you to be like, okay, I need to apply to this?
It was something that, like, when I was reading into like everything that it was describing about what Fairgrounds stood for and what it was going to bring to the area, it was something that just seemed so fresh and unique and interesting, and unlike anything that St. Pete has ever seen. And it really combined a lot of the things that I love so much, like art and sort of this like theatricality and like narrative-based artistic sense that just is always something that I wanted to be a part of. And so seeing that, I was just like, why yes, I will respond to this ad. Thank you very much.
So awesome. And so you applied as an artist in this open call.
Yes.
So we were super wowed by your proposal. So tell us about the FloridaRAMA diorama that you proposed.
So it was super cool that this came along because I, like so many other people, unfortunately lost my job due to the pandemic. And so I had been unemployed for months just trying to find something that I could channel my creativity into. And so when this thing came along, like, this was the first project that I'd had in a very long time, like for a very specific purpose that I could like really, really invest my time and talent and artistic senses into. So I kind of went crazy about the whole thing because it just sounded so cool. And it also sounded so cool because Fairgrounds is so much about what's weird and unique about Florida. And I've been around these parts for like a little bit of time, so I kind of am well versed in all that stuff. So it kind of felt like a culmination of like a lot of things, and I was very excited to work on it. So my piece that I'm working on, it is one of the central narrative functions of Fairgrounds is this lobby of a motel called the Mermaid Star Motel. And so when we were first introduced to this, like as an artist applying to be a part of this program, Fairgrounds, sent out a webinar that sort of like loosely described what this narrative was based on. And I incorporated that as well as what I was talking about, some of my interest in like weird, creepy Florida things, and sort of did my own take on what this lobby would be like. And it's very cool, very exciting. It's doing things that I've never done before because I say I've never made a diorama. I have probably when I was in like 3rd grade. I think I made like a miniature replica of Straw Park and I put like Darkwing Duck in it. But like this is my first as a professional artist diorama that I've made, and my art style is so 2-dimensional and like doodly and drawing based that it's been a really interesting journey to take what works about my 2-dimensional drawings and translate that into a 3-dimensional space because it's just like uncharted territory. Like it's been so fascinating and interesting and kind of scary, but like rewarding at the same time.
Yes. So, and we've talked about this before, but so the FloridaRAMA artists are a cohort of very special, curated artists who, we've given you guys this box, and it's like about 20 by 16. And for some artists, this box is, and the constraints of this box, it's like tiny. They're like, I'm used to doing full room installations and I have to do something. And for you, that's not the case.
No, not at all, because I love working small. So I look at this box and I'm like, what on earth am I going to put in this? Because it's like, for example, I was in a gallery show at Chad Mize's gallery a couple years ago called Mini, and everything had to be 3 inches by 3 inches and under. And I was like, I'm in my element. This is perfect. So I see this box. What are the dimensions? It's like 16 by 14 by 20.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly.
And I look at that and I'm just like, I have to build that.
That's a lot.
I don't know how to do that. But it's been working out.
Yes, and tell us about what the diorama will. So it's the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
But what materials are you using, and what's that process been?
So, like I said, that this is like totally uncharted territory for me. I decided that I wanted to do it out of like laser cut pieces of wood, which I thought would really be durable and sustainable because in my mind, I wanted to try and have it sort of have like a pop-up book kind of look. And that way I could sort of like utilize my drawing skills and, maybe have like pieces of paper in there. But then I was trying to think of like sustainability wise, that might not last a long time. So then my brain went to like, oh, I'll make it out of wood. That won't be that much different, but it's very different. Yeah, and it's been unique and interesting. And I would say it's been challenging translating it, but then once I actually got over that initial hump of like, how do I take this drawing and make it into like a 3D shape, it actually came quite easily. So sometimes you just kind of like gotta push past that initial first part that's so like scary and foreign and weird, and then you get to the part where you're like, oh, I know how to do this.
And I think that's, we so appreciate about you, Chad, and with all of our Fairgrounds artists who are, you're focusing on your strengths in illustration or in different strengths, but then you're also pushing the boundaries and challenging yourself to learn a new medium or working with local vendors and collaborating to just be like, all right, let me try this new thing.
Yeah, totally. Because I kind of equate like being an artistically inclined person to being like a shark. Like a shark stops swimming and it dies. Like as an artist, if you stop innovating, then like your creativity just dries up. You have to be constantly taking on new things to sort of like reinvigorate yourself and sort of like bring a new passion to the stuff that you're doing. Like my stuff now is so different from things that I was doing like 10 years ago, and that's because I'm always trying to like introduce new elements, introduce new things, like try something different. And that just always excites me.
So I think that's a great segue. So talk us through your career, this 10-year journey, and then before that.
Yes. Well, I've always been someone who has had a keen interest in the arts, whether it be like visual arts or theater. And so I'm not quite sure which one came first. It might have been theater, actually. I got my first theatrical experience when I was in kindergarten when I played Toto to my sister's Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. And then, also around that time, like you draw for school, and it's like I never stopped drawing. I would draw on everything. And then like as I got older, like my love of these things only grew. And so all through middle school, I was drawing on all of my homework assignments and getting in trouble for that. And like still continuing to act on the side. And then when I got into high school, I was like, this is something that I should pursue like as an actual career. So I actually applied for the Pinellas County Center for the Arts BCCA program at Gibbs High School, and I got in for both visual arts and theater, so I actually had to choose which one I wanted to follow. And at the time, like, I don't know what my logic was at the time. It was a very long time ago, but like I decided that visual art was the thing that I wanted to pursue more, because I guess I felt that was more viable as like a career or something like that. So after Gibbs High School, I graduated. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I majored in illustration, which kind of felt like the right fit for me. I struggled back and forth between whether I wanted to do like fine art or illustration, but illustration kind of felt more like my vibe. But then as I was going through the illustration program, I thought that it would be smart to also take on graphic design as a minor, because those two mediums, I mean, what would you call that, career choices, like they kind of go hand in hand. And it's like, I think being an illustrator and a graphic designer really can kind of enhance both things, because like not every illustration job needs graphic design, but if you have a good graphic design sense, you can bring that to your illustration. And not every graphic design job needs illustration, but if you have those illustration skills, you can sometimes make something that's like a little bit more special than you could have if you didn't have those skills. So I graduated from SCAD, and then I tried a career in freelancing for a while. During that period, I actually self-published a children's book that I wrote and illustrated called Vesuvius the Jetpack Bat, about a bat that flies around with a jetpack. And that was really kind of like my first experience in building a brand, because I was taking that around to like schools. I was doing school readings. I did some readings at some libraries. I had it in the Festival of Reading 2 years in a row. And every time I would like bring it somewhere, I would add something else to it. So it's like I had this book, which was kind of like the center of the brand, and then I kind of expanded that into like merchandising, like t-shirts and like stuffed animals, because I discovered that I knew how to sew. Who knew? And then like bookmarks and coloring pages and like other things of that sort. So I did that for about 3 years, and then after that, I started working at American Stage Theater Company, which, if you're unfamiliar, that is, I believe, the area's, like the St. Pete area's longest standing professional theater company. And I was their graphic designer. I had a specific title that I don't remember right now. It was like something graphic design, graphics and marketing associate or something. So it was kind of like a go-between between like the graphic design element and like the marketing element. And I kind of did like a little bit of everything when I was there. So it's like all of the print media and like the web media and like social media and like the photography, the videography, the artwork for the shows, the programs. I would sometimes take the actors to like media appearances and like do some like pre-show announcements and stuff like that. But the thing that excited me the most about that is that kind of harkened back to my sort of like fork in the road that I had when I went to high school, where I had to choose between art and theater. And American Stage was really able to bring those two things together in a way that I could do both things. Like I was doing art in service of theater, which was really exciting and cool for me. I was there for about 3 years, and then at 3 seems to be like a prominent number in the years that I spent doing things. And then I went to work at Feld Entertainment. And if you're unfamiliar with Feld Entertainment, that is the parent company of like Disney on Ice, Monster Jam, Jurassic World Live, Marvel Universe Live, Sesame Street Live, basically any sort of live touring arena show that you can think of, like they own it. And so I was the graphic designer there, and one of the many graphic designers there. They had a whole department, which was wild coming off of working at American Stage, where it was very much just like I was the graphic designer in the department. And then here it's just like all of these people do these things. And so I didn't really have a clear set parameter of like what my job was there. Like I didn't work on one specific brand. I would kind of bounce back and forth between whatever brand needed some sort of thing designed for it. So that was pretty exciting to be able to work on like all these huge brands and never really have like the same experience every day. And I, unfortunately, that's when the pandemic hit and I lost my job there after 3 years, because as I said, 3 years is a weird recurring number for me. But what's cool is while I was there were a lot of other artists like in the graphic design department, that we collaborated. Some good friends of mine, Gina Caldwell and James Kendall. Gina created a mural that the three of us were then tapped to paint, like in the video content studio lab there. So even though we're no longer there, there's still like this fun piece of us in the Feld building, which is kind of neat and cool.
You're very collaborative.
Yes,
so
I love that so much.
That brings you to Fairgrounds.
That brings me to Fairgrounds,
which
with
is
some sort of like theater and art show things like intermingled in between, like probably that time from American Stage to Feld. Like I did a lot of stuff with Chad Mize, and then I actually did some theater stuff on the side, like you mentioned earlier with the Shakespeare Festival.
Exactly.
A good friend that I met at American Stage, Veronica Matthews, started the St. Pete Shakespeare Festival, whose goal was to bring free community-based Shakespeare back to St. Pete. And I got roped into that because she heard that I used to be like a big fan of theater. You know, of course, my days as Toto when I was in kindergarten. And she insisted that I would be a part of it. She's basically like, you will be in these shows and you can't say no, which then kind of like reignited my love of theater. So it's, I've always just kind of had like art and theater just like cycling around me for like the last decade. And it's been really exciting, the opportunities that it's presented. Because also, actually, now that I talk about it, like from doing stuff with St. Pete Shakespeare, another good friend of mine, Chris Rutherford and Bob Devin Jones, actually from Studio at 620, reached out to me individually of one another. It was insane. Like they both came to me with this same suggestion, and then we all collaborated on it together. But there was a one-man show about the life of Keith Haring that a late local playwright, Jeff Norton, wrote in the 90s. And they both thought that I would be the perfect fit for it, which I don't know why, because they had never seen me in anything. I guess they just really wanted to work with me on this. So the three of us actually collaborated on that. And we did a staged reading of that for World AIDS Day in December of, I think, like 2015. And then actually did a full production of it at the Catherine Hickman Theater in Gulfport for Pride that next year, because the cultural events person from the Hickman Theater had actually seen it at the reading and invited us back to do it at Pride. And what was so cool about that is that really was kind of like bringing my love of theater and art to a head, because it was theater about art in which I was portraying an artist who I admired while also creating recreations of his artwork on stage.
Amazing.
And it was insane.
Wow. There's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
So let's bring it back to Fairgrounds.
Yes, now I'm here.
Now that I brought you here, let's talk about some of your favorite projects that you've worked on. So you're currently wearing one of the designs that you've worked on, our cast and character shirt, the Fairgrounds St. Pete cast and characters mask. So some of your favorite projects. So all of that combined experience has just led you to we're elated to have you on the team. And you're, when we were looking for a graphic designer, we wanted someone who was able to draw, because we're, big on like craft, and you had that element of being able to illustrate, but also design as well. So tell us about some of your favorite projects here.
Well, there's so many. I don't really. Well, I guess I'll start at the beginning. So when I first started here, my first major project was to just kind of like hone the branding and like the logo a little bit. Like Olivia Mansion, our lovely CEO and co-founder, he had created some initial branding elements, and it was sort of like a baton pass. It's like he had created the stuff that he then wanted to pass on to another graphic designer to put like an extra layer of polish on, being like a second set of eyes on this thing. And that was a really exciting opportunity for me at first, because as we talked about, I love collaboration. So to be able to be handed this thing that was in itself like this already existing brand that had all this like really exciting stuff in it, and had like, Mikhail's really exciting design sensibility as a part of it, and then be tasked with sort of like taking that to the next natural evolution of the brand. It was really exciting because I was able to find like commonalities in our design style to sort of like bring this to life and sort of kind of like carry it over the finish line. So that's this lovely thing right here. And then once we finished that, like along with the logo, there were a bunch of little like characters that went along with it that sort of complemented some of the forms of the logo. And so that sort of led to this lovely merch that you see here. Most of the Fairgrounds branded merchandise came from this brand refresh that I did. So like the mask, a t-shirt, and other things that I can't.
We have stickers now. We have stickers now.
We have stickers.
Yes.
We have mugs. We have like all kinds of things that will be in our shop online and also in our shop at Fairgrounds. So you should come and buy a thing or two or 10.
Yes.
And then from there, the next huge project was actually the postcard, which was very exciting. Liz Dimmitt, our other co-founder, she had this very specific vision of wanting to have this like vintage, traditionally hand-drawn postcard that had like welcome to Fairgrounds with like different pictures in each letter sort of talking about the Fairgrounds narrative. And that was a really exciting opportunity for me because, I like working on the computer, I like working digitally, but I also like being able to step back from that and kind of get my hands dirty and do things traditionally. I love traditional media. Like that's always been my first love. And so whenever I'm able to do something like that, I think that's really exciting. And then again, the wonderful collaborative element of that is I was able to work on that with local muralist Derek Donnelly, and he brought it to life on the side of our building, so you can drive by on Fairfield Avenue and see it, take a picture with it, etc. But it was cool because throughout the entire creation process, we were in touch with one another, and it's like I would show him some of the things that I was working on, and he would say like, oh, well, maybe that wouldn't work so well for a mural, because I, again, think of in terms of like the teeny tiny things that I draw and create. And so to get his perspective about like what would read and what would look good giant was very helpful. And that was a very exciting opportunity to have worked with him on that. And then after that, like another big collaborative project, there are two artists from Amsterdam, Sabrina Verhage and Fernando Diaz. And I can't really talk about what I did for them because it's kind of secret because, we don't want to give away everything. But they created a room for Fairgrounds, and they were focused more on the technological aspect of it. And since they weren't physically here because of the state of the world at the moment, like I was tapped to sort of translate their design into reality. And so I was able to, again, talk back and forth with them, talk about what they wanted, sort of explore the whole color is very specific to this room. I won't say why, but that was like a whole journey, and that was really cool and exciting. And then once I finished that, actually, we have scenic painters Chloe Castillo and Brian Martina, who currently are bringing that to life, and I think they might have just finished it. So I'm excited to see it in action, and you guys should be excited to see it in action too, when we open very soon. And then since then, I've just been kind of working on different production things, like different narrative story elements. There's probably something in every room, like no matter how small or insignificant, that I have tweaked or touched or worked on. And again, I don't want to give too much away because like that sort of ruins the mystery and the searchiness of it all. But yeah, there's been no shortage of fun, cool things that I've worked on. Maybe my favorite thing that I've worked on.
Ooh, working with me.
I mean, that, obviously. But my favorite project.
Oh, project. All right, that's just a given.
You're not a project. You're fine as you are. I actually did some in our real Mermaid Motel lobby, not my diorama box, but the one that's actually in the space. There is a brochure rack that is filled with a bunch of different brochures that are kind of like some places you might recognize, but kind of not. And I won't say more than that because you'll have to see it for yourself.
So when we open and you come into our lobby, be sure to check out the brochure rack, and you are in for a delightful surprise. So
lots of puns, so many puns, all of the puns. They're all terrible, but I think that's what makes them good, right?
That's what makes them good. I think your humor, Chad, is a big element of your work and of working with you and collaborating with you.
And that is something that I actually said the other day, that I think like this place more than anywhere else has appreciated my dorky sense of humor, like at just like a new level. Because quite often, like I would suggest things sarcastically at other places that I've worked at, and people would be like, oh, whatever. But here I just make like a stupid punny joke, and it's like, no, that's great, do that. I love that.
You're among like-minded, humorous people.
Yes. So many dad jokes.
So good. So what is it like being, on the inside? You work for Fairgrounds, but you're also a FloridaRAMA artist. What's it like kind of crossing both worlds?
It's really interesting to be able to kind of like see things from the outside and then also see the behind the scenes of it, because it's like I'm able to think in terms of my project and what I'm doing, but then I'm also able to see like what the space is actually like and see what other people are doing. But as I was saying to you the other day, one of the things that's so fascinating about that is I really have not adapted my personal FloridaRAMA diorama to like the things that I know from Fairgrounds. And I think that's because I sort of like having that sort of like, you know, multiverse divide where it's like we have this mermaid star motel and then this mermaid star motel that are similar enough because there is some overlap. It's like some things I'm kind of surprised at like how well I predicted what things would be like in the actual space, but it's neat to be able to have like two distinct versions of something. And you know, it's also handy that I get a behind the scenes look so I can just steal pieces out of other people's dioramas and put it in mine. You know? Just like, thank you.
Your sarcasm.
Yes, I haven't actually done that, or have I?
The mystery continues.
Yes.
And then also, so you're from St. Pete.
Yes.
What is it like having this immersive experience opening in your hometown?
It's incredible, honestly, and it's something that I think about all the time. Like, there are a lot of like long-standing institutions that kind of seem to like to gatekeep artistic experiences and like who can have them and when they can have them. And I think it's very important to have places like Fairgrounds that honestly are here. Like it is in our tagline, Art for All. They're here to like make it presentable to everyone. Like the artist call, there wasn't any sort of like caveat. You didn't need to have like extensive years of all of this artistic stuff that you've done in order to apply for this. It's like so long as you had the drive and so long as you had like the passion to create this cool project that worked along the lines of what we're doing, you had an opportunity to do it. And that's amazing that so many people that we've talked to that have brought in their boxes or have been working on rooms in the space have said like, I've never had an opportunity like this before, and I'm really excited that you guys were here to present that to us. And I think that's incredible. I think that's something that every community needs to have. Like, it's not about prestige, it's about uplifting the community, and then the prestige comes from creating like this amazing thing out of the people that love and support the area.
Oh my gosh, Chad, that's so beautiful. End quote. Well, I don't know a better way to wrap up this immersive conversation than with what you just said. So it is such a pleasure to have you as both a team member and a colleague, and also as an artist.
You represent it for anything.
You represent the ethos of what we believe in, and you really do. It's all art for all, play for all, joy for all. You really encompass it. And I hope that those at home who are also inspired by what you just shared, they want to apply for our guest services position, which they can check out. Yeah. But it is such a pleasure, and just thank you for, you know, uplifting our brand and just making it so playful and so great.
Thank you for creating this playground that I'm able to just like plan on the daily, create all this amazing stuff. It's so much fun.
So good. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you everyone for joining this week's Immersive Conversation. I now invite you to visit our shop, of course, and you can check out all of the beautiful work that Chad has worked on. Get yourself a mask or a shirt or even a postcard, and you can actually see on the blog post that we worked on, you can actually see the process of that Chad went through. He actually hand illustrated that postcard and then created a postcard, so you definitely want to buy 1 or 5 for your friends.
Or 10, you know.
Or 10. I know. Come on. And thank you to our team who is here in person making this possible. Stephanie, Liv Scully, Olivia Mansion. Thank you all for making this possible. And of course, we will see y'all next time. Thank you. Goodbye.